Hello everyone, today I'm playing a demo for a game called Herald, a game which is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. Recently I got a message from the developers asking me if I'd like to give it a try on YouTube. To be quite honest, I actually didn't even notice the message until just yesterday, and I got the message a week ago. That's because YouTube doesn't really do a very good job of notifying you when you get messages, and at least private messages anyway. So Herald is a game which is a combination of a visual novel and a point-and-click adventure, which is pretty interesting. You also got this kind of journal system, which is similar to games like, the Elder Scrolls, other RPGs, where you have a journal which tells you what your objectives are and clues along the way of what you have to do. It also comes with a little bit of an encyclopedia with people, the Herald itself, which is the ship, documents, pictures, antiques, every day. I'm not really sure what these last few things are, but, this stuff is pretty basic. It'll probably tell you what kind of people you meet along the way, things about the ship, that kind of information, documents. Probably kind of books and other documents you find along the way. And lastly over here we have a map of the ship. So the top deck, the weather deck, tween deck, cargo hold, that kind of thing. Things about a ship. So we start off here, and as I mentioned, it's a point-and-click adventure game mixed with a visual novel, so you can click on things and head towards them, click on the objects themselves to inspect them. One thing that's kind of different if you're used to visual novels is you can't just click to advance the text, you have to click on this little arrow thing to advance along what you have to do. It's not something which I'm sure if it'll be in the finished game itself, like maybe you can press spacebar, or maybe you can just click anywhere in the finished product and, that'll be a thing. I kind of hope they do change that because it's kind of annoying having to each time go over to the arrow and click to move things along. But, it's a demo, so obviously things aren't finalized yet, so you can't really tell what the final product will be just from this alone. And here we got the key to the cabin, so there'll probably be a little note added to our journal. If you want to go back to your journal, just hover down the bottom of the screen and it'll update with the new information. We found the spare key of the room, so we should be able to enter it now. We can check some more stuff just in case, but, now we can advance along the way. There's a guy in this room who doesn't want us to bother him, so we'll leave him alone, and this is the room we want to head inside. It's a rather short demo, so that's why I'm just kind of showing off as much as I can right now. I can take a look at the objects on the desk. Was his moral compass as trustworthy as the one on the desk? I don't know. Don't really know too much about this guy yet, do we? We have a map of the African coast. Interesting. This game takes place in an alternate version of the 19th century, where the West, which I'm assuming means Europe and possibly the New World of, North and South America, are united under a single empire called the Protectorate. So, for that, I'm assuming it's some kind of a super mega British empire which came to its full potential and is now pretty much in charge of the whole world, at least from the sounds of this description. This is a little bit of a clue. As we can see, there's a draft coming from the bookcase in Brunswick's room. I'll keep that in mind. So yeah, kind of in classic point-and-click adventure games, there's clues and things you have to investigate and hidden objects you have to find. Take a look at some more of this stuff over here. Maybe this book over here as well will have something in it. Yeah, so this is the Merchant Navy's handbook, which tells us that officers are allowed to carry guns, but other members of the crew aren't. And if you recall from our journal, what it said, okay, we can't access it in this screen, you have to back off a bit first. Yeah, that's another little rough edge, which would be nice if they kind of fixed up a bit. Maybe you can access your journal everywhere. Maybe you can press J to access your journal, but not in this version, at least not yet. So there's a gun missing aboard the Herald, and the boatswains asked us to find the thief before the captain does. That's our current objective, and these little clues give us information along the way. So officers are allowed to bear arms, but I don't know, the captain himself may not exactly approve of firearms on this ship, so something to keep in mind. I guess captains have their own private policies. So a loose board was cleverly hidden behind a couple of books here. Let's take a quick look to see if there's anything behind this panel. His journal. Let's see. So according to the journal, there's a hole behind a painting. Well, that's another thing to bear in mind. Let's just take a quick look at these things too, because there's more notes that can be added to our book, and we'll try to collect as many as we can in the short time we have. So before we move on, let's take a look at our journal one last time, at the notes we have. Our encyclopedia is probably updated by now because we found a few things. Nothing for people yet. Maybe for the Herald itself? No? What about under documents? Yeah, so you have the sea chart, which you can look at. A little bit of information about the Protectorate expanded its territory in the 1820s. Brunswick got to lead an expedition that would chart the depths and currents of the southern hemisphere. Interesting. It's a little bit about our past here. Okay, so let's move along. Like I said, there's not too much to this demo, and it's coming to an end quickly. So there's a painting here, and behind it there's something, a gap. Let's see. The maneuver a little bit to get our glimpse behind the gap, and there's a guy in there with a gun. Well, that's probably the person we're seeking to find. Aaron Ludlow. Well, I think you've been caught, Aaron. What do you think? So, like a classic visual novel, you got a couple different choices you can pick. For the purpose of this playthrough, we're gonna play things, we're gonna play the nice guy, so we'll apologize to the guy. Tell him we didn't really mean it. We didn't know this was here. Well, we kinda did, but we had just figured it out now. What should we choose here? We need to talk. I think so. As you can tell, most of this thing is being done from the past tense, because he's reciting the story if you notice the text in the beginning. So this game is supposed to take place dealing with the main character's past and also dealing with his present, which I'm guessing he's at some kind of hearing regarding the events that took place on this day. At least that's what I've gathered from this demo. There's probably more to it than that, but this is at least what the demo covers. So let's listen to him. You know, we'll try to get an idea of what he's trying to do here. Yeah, I don't think he's exactly going to go on a killing spree either. He just seemed to be playing with the gun, which, I don't know. I was worried. Why were you playing with that gun? No, he's not suicidal. What is it? It's not fair. The Merchant Navy Handbook, from cover to cover, it clearly says that every officer is allowed to bear arms, and we do know that's true from what we had read. Every officer. So why wouldn't he be allowed to exercise his right? Well, we do know the captain has his own policy. He sees the right of officers to bear arms as an outdated one. Whether or not there's more to it than that, it isn't exactly clear right now, although personally I suspect there's probably more to it than just that. And Aaron says it's not exactly the gun itself that is the main point, but it seems there's a bit of racial tension present aboard the ship. And perhaps that's part of the reason behind the captain's policies, which we really don't know much about right now. Again, it's not really clear, but at this point it seems there's more to what's going on here than just what we're hearing. And regardless, it seems that Aaron's definitely suspicious of something going on board the ship. And we're not going to report him, but we are going to make sure that he returns the gun, because that seems like it's the most reasonable decision we can make here. But at the last second, the captain walks in, and it looks like things aren't exactly going to go according to plan.
I was born in the East, adopted and raised in the West, in a home away from home, proud citizen of the Protectorate. When I decided to search for my roots, I knew things would change. Things did change. Do I regret my choice? Maybe. Do I regret boarding the Herald? No.
So that's the demo for Herald. What did I think about it? It really does seem like an interesting project. If you remember a while back, during one of the talks with Christianarium, we discussed a visual novel called Colderka. In that visual novel, they used the Unity engine, which led to mixed results. On one hand, it led to an interesting visual style which showed some potential. In the opening scene, the camera pulls back through the snowy forest, and it goes through a window into a cabin that's all warm and has a nice interior, and it really looked quite nice. Unfortunately, after that, the rest of the game consisted of 2D drawn characters overlaid on the 3D environment, which, as we mentioned, was a bit of a terrible clash. This game also uses the Unity engine to create lively 3D environments, but it goes a step further and puts in animated 3D models for the characters, so I'm pretty happy about that. I like the art style, and I'm not going to go into a full critique on the game, as it's just a demo and you can see and judge for yourself how you like it. The story sounds rather interesting. It's set in an alternate history, 19th century, and it seems like it's going to deal with topics such as colonialism, and the relationship between the people of the Empire with the people of the colonies. There's a lot of directions I can go in, and if the game has as much freedom as it promises, it's going to make for a very interesting experience. If you liked what you saw here, you can go ahead and click the annotation to view the game's Kickstarter page. There'll also be a link in the description for you mobile users. Full disclosure, I'm not being paid anything or offered anything for this review. I just got an email from the developers kindly asking me to check it out, and so I did. I haven't contributed anything or backed this project or developer as of this time. I will say though that I am considering backing this project because it really does look like an interesting idea and I like what they're doing here. The Kickstarter currently has about 16 days remaining, and it's at 8,615 euros out of its 15,000 euro goal. So one last thing to note, Herald is supposed to be a two-part story, and I believe this Kickstarter only applies for the first part, so you can keep that in mind. If you have any other comments you'd like to share about Herald or this video, go ahead and post them below. If you decide to go ahead and support this project, be sure to let me know and tell me what you think about it. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.